So, good morning, everybody. As promised, today we have a guest speaker, none other than the ex-Philadelphia homicide detective, later to become ex-Camden County Prosecutor's Office homicide detective, Ken Curcio. How you doing this morning, Ken?
I'm doing pretty good. I woke up and opened my eyes. It's pretty good.
Every day you climb out of bed is a good day at our age,
exactly.
right, buddy?
Another day.
So anyway, we're here this morning. We're going to discuss an old friend of Ken's by the name of Gary M. Heidnik. Ken had the opportunity to work on that case when the case reared its ugly head in Philadelphia back in the 1980s. But first I want to remind everybody, discretion by all listeners is strongly advised. And if you're under 18, you don't belong listening to this podcast. Listener discretion is strongly advised due to the content of the nature of the discussions that we have this morning. Some of it is sexual in nature, and the rest of it is violent and graphic in nature. So we want you to pay attention to the warnings about using listener discretion, and definitely this is no place for minors. So Ken, give me a little bit of background. Where you come from, who the hell are you, and what brings you here today?
I'm actually from Philadelphia. Born and raised in my late 19th year. And went through the academy, and I was assigned to the 39th Police District in North Philadelphia as a uniformed officer. I was 20 years old. I looked awfully young for an officer.
You did?
Yeah, I did. I grew the mustache to make me look older, and now I don't have that problem.
What's your excuse now, though?
I kind of got used to it.
Don't we all?
Yeah, after about almost 2 years, I was transferred to the Juvenile Aid Division, which is an outfit within the police department that handles investigations and arrests on anybody under the age of 18.
Now keep your voice up, because some of our listeners are impaired.
Like
usually a lot of old men, you know what I mean, that listen to this stuff.
Okay, I'll try to. And after a short sprint there, I was promoted to the rank of detective, and I was assigned to the Northeast Detective Division. I spent there as a line detective for, I guess, about 4 years, and I had an opportunity to transfer to the homicide division. And I went to the homicide division in late 1974, and I stayed there for almost 21 years. And I found my niche. I really enjoyed what I did. I kind of worked on the field, and I met some honorable people, and I met some wonderful people. I met the Pope. I got to take some lesson from John Paul. I also got further. Met Harrison Ford, got my wife and my son and myself. Actually saw a movie called Witness that was from Philadelphia, and that was quite a thrill. And I got an offer from Camden County in late '74, and I retired in '75 and went directly to the Camden County Prosecutor's Office, and I was assigned to the homicide division there, and I enjoyed that too. I met some good people that I worked with, and Camden, I always used to say, was like Philadelphia with no good spots. But we had the whole county, so the county's actually beautiful and has some great locations. Camden has seen better days.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, but there's a lot of good people, a lot of people that I worked with had a great deal of respect for it. Actually grew up in Camden like yourself. But it was an experience. I had to retire in, I think, 2011. Because I was turning 65 in New Jersey. I couldn't carry a weapon until I was 65.
Now, when you joined the Camden County Prosecutor's Office homicide division, you came into that in the 80s when Camden County was considered the murder capital of the nation. You remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
And that's probably part of the reason why homicide detectives, ex-homicide detectives in Philadelphia were brought over, because we were basically getting our asses slammed, for lack of a better term.
There's kind of like a funny story about that. A captain that I worked for, a great deal of respect, he retired as an inspector in the police department, and he got a job as chief of police, Rutgers Police Department.
Oh yeah, okay.
And he met the chief of Camden County, Phil Brown, and they became friends. And Phil Brown was scratching his head because they were inundated with homicides, and they really weren't solving a lot of them. They wanted to solve a lot more. And he suggested that they hire some people that are fluent in that investigation field. And my name was given, and that's how I got the job. And that was in 95.
95.
Yeah.
Wow.
But Camden had a lot of respect for the people that worked in Camden, police officers and detectives, people in the prosecutor's office, and it was quite an experience.
Now, I worked in the Camden County Prosecutor's Office Homicide Division when you came into it, and we had occasion to work together at times.
Oh, yeah.
But I can honestly say I was never called in to rescue you on any of the cases you were handling, as I can't say that for everyone in the unit, because you actually knew what the hell you were doing.
Well, I had done it for like
A long time. And a lot of respect should be given to this gentleman sitting here, because let me tell you, he's had some tough nuts to crack over the years. And it's my honor and my privilege to have him here today. And I'm very surprised he found my house, actually, let alone my studio. But he's here, and we're about to get ready to talk about one of the infamous cases that Ken was involved in. Gary M. Heidnik, a.k.a. Brother Bishop. Tell us what you know about this boy.
I never heard him called the Bishop. We used to call him the Red. Reverend Heidnik, Red Heidnik. It's quite an interesting story. Back in 87 was a year that was infamous with my squad.
Being what? What squad?
Yeah,
The
squad.
homicide.
I was working as a squad detective. Homicides broken up into like 6 different squads. The first 1 through 4 are line squads.
What do you mean by line squad? Explain that to the audience.
They're the units that handle the investigations that come in while they're working on a shift. And then there's the 5th squad, which is usually unsolved homicide or fugitives, and they make up the 5 and 6 squads. So I was a divisional unit, and 89 was quite a year for us. We had the Callinger case and the Marty Graham case, which
If we stop you there in 1 second, when you say the Callinger case, you're referring to Joseph Callinger, correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the Reverend Heidnik case and the Marty Graham case. I did work on the Callinger case with my investigation.
We'll talk about that another time, folks.
That was quite a case.
Joseph Callinger, a.k.a. the Shoemaker, infamous Philadelphia serial killer. He used to use his son, or at least one of his sons, to help him gain access to sole elderly women living alone. And he would target them, usually rape them, brutalize them, and leave them for dead. Ken actually worked on that case as well, which we'll get to with another sitting. But go ahead, Ken, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, we were working the last house shift, which was 12 midnight. Tuesday or Wednesday.
Is that like the graveyard shift?
Yeah, we did a work shift, and usually after the first 3.5, 4 hours, if things aren't happening, you get time to work on your reports and get things together. And we were kind of like late into the shift, and a uniformed police officer came into the unit with a young lady, Josefina Rivera. And be honest with you, she was somewhat attractive, but she gave the appearance of a streetwalker, a woman of the evening. And she gave us this very detailed and bizarre story. She had been kidnapped by a reverend that had a church in North Philadelphia. He was a white guy, and he had a lot of money. And he had kidnapped her and kept her in prison. And he defeated the big girl and had her handcuffed in the basement of the church with five of them. And they were in dire straits. Fed them, taken care of them, basically chained to a water pump. They couldn't. They decided to try to overpower them.
Is there any truth to the fact that he supposedly had dug a pit in the basement?
Yeah.
I
guess both things. It was enough that when they got out of hand, shot them. That was trying to keep them in line. And Rivera, she tried to use a little bit of kindness towards him to get his confidence. And one of the things she did was she kind of told him that the other women were planning to overpower him and escape. And he began to have confidence in Miss Rivera. And, excuse me. And Miss Rivera told him at one time that she was sick and she was feeling really bad and she needed to get her medicine and she could get it in the place that she was living while she was a street walker. And he agreed. He took her in his Cadillac to the location and he left her out and he told her he would wait for her in his car. Well, as soon as she got out, she contacted the police. And the uniformed police officer, he came and he listened to her story. And he went over to where the car was parked. It was gone. So he went to the local detective division and they kind of looked at the story and bizarre. They don't handle rapes and homicides. So they shipped her to the bar office. And to be honest with you, she came in and she told us the story. A white reverend in the church, eight women, chained
sounded too bizarre to be real.
Yeah, it sounded out of place. It really bizarre. But she had bruises. She was raped. So we contacted juvenile and the three witnesses. They sent us an investigator. He came and he took a rape statement from her. And based on the rape statement, along with the other information, they secured an arrest warrant and a search warrant for his residence. Well,
where was his residence, by the way?
It was up in Marshall Street in North Philadelphia. I can't really give you the address. It's 5200.
Sure.
And they went up to this place, and sure enough, here is this like a twin residence, two-story, kind of dilapidated church with a church sign on it. Parked in next to it is a Rolls Royce. And a Cadillac. And it's a Cadillac as described by Miss Rivera. So they bang on the door and it's opened by this disheveled kind of white guy just woke up. And they gained entry into the first place they went was into the basement. And sure enough, in the basement was three black women completely naked, handcuffed to a water in this trench that was built into the floor. And of course, Heidnik is arrested, and the three women are sent to the hospital and treated. It becomes a crime scene. Heidnik is transferred back to homicide to be prosecuted. Now, Heidnik was a strange guy. He would not talk about anything what he was doing was a crime, which is important for prosecutors. But he was willing to talk to me about other things. And I had a conversation with him, which was really interesting. He had a lot of money. And
I understand he was considered to be pretty smart as well, right?
yeah, he had a very,
And an
what I
investor,
understand.
investing money in different things.
I mean, he had a high IQ, maybe not as high as mine, but
Okay, he wasn't as high as mine, was he?
well, I got into a conversation with him about the stock market, and he told me that he's made a lot of money in the stock market, but he doesn't invest in normal stocks. He invests in utilities. And he told me utility stock is usually expensive and it doesn't go up in value, but it constantly pays a dividend. So if you buy utility stocks, you're secure. You know, Philadelphia Electric's not going to go out of business. Tampa Electric is not going to go out of business either. They're expensive and they pay the shareholders a nice dividend. So that's how he made his money. Of course, I never had enough money to invest.
In your humble opinion, during that conversation with Heidnik, is it your belief that what he was telling you was truthful, fact, as opposed to fiction, and that it took some sense of an intellectual to be able to speak to you on that level?
Yeah, I mean, he knew what was going on.
He did. In your opinion.
Oh, yeah. Like the fact that he would not speak about any of the crimes, women, church, or anything like that. But he was talking about it.
I heard, well not heard, I read, I should say, during my research of him, that at one point in time there was a complaint of a stench coming from his home or one of the roofs in his neighborhood, or
that was another investigation.
another investigation. Okay.
That was Marty Graham's investigation.
Marty Graham's case. Okay, you worked on that as well. That was your case,
all
right?
Now, it wasn't my case. I was again a line squad detective, and it was my squad's case.
Okay.
So we work on it all together, and there's a lot of work that has to be done both inside the office and then out on the street. And we team up and we do our work and try to bring the case in.
Now, one of the things that I promised my listeners about this Heidnik case was that I had read somewhere that Gary Heidnik also cooked some of his dead victims and fed them to some of his captives. And
well, it's a fact that two of the ladies, he had 6 altogether, including this, 2 of them died. He did cut them up, and human remains were found on a stove inside the basement, and other body parts were found in boxes in the basement. So it's a good case to certainly cut them up, and possibly cook them, but whether we fed them,
you don't know.
we don't assume.
That's never been established by the homicide division.
Women didn't know what they
So
were.
I guess it's more of an inference than what we found there was indicative of the fact that he might have been doing it.
Very much.
Was he ever asked about that question?
He wouldn't talk to me about anything.
So there's no formal confession from him, I imagine.
Not that I know of. I was never part of any confession, but you really didn't need much of a confession. I mean, it was there.
Do you happen to remember anything about his court or his bail situation or what prison he went to or anything like that?
He was held without bail, and of course he was probably held at either Gradersford or the detention center during his trial. And once he was found guilty and sentenced to death, I believe he was sent to a prison in central Pennsylvania where death sentence inmates kept.
And was that where he was eventually put to death?
Yes.
Okay, and that was by lethal injection, to my understanding?
There's only been 2 people that have been executed in Pennsylvania, even though there's an awful lot that have been sentenced to death.
I think the year might have been 1999 for his execution.
Yeah,
Is that right about-
it was in the 90s. I know I was at a homicide by the time. If I had been there, I might have taken a drive up there and waved goodbye to Gary.
Yeah.
He deserved it.
Now, is there any truth to the fact that he used to use some type of reference to himself as being some type of minister to pick up women? A minister or whatever.
He had schemes he would use that. He had women that he kissed, and they were all, for the most part, I understand, were ladies of the evening. And then disappeared. Nobody's going to make a formal complaint for this one. And probably the person who did that. But actually, which I was surprised at. When I went to the scene much later, after the initial contact and the arrest and all, and I went into the church, it's a house, and there was games set up, and, video games and stuff for kids, and so what the heck is that? I could never figure out what that was about.
But you finally did figure it out.
I did figure it out, yeah.
And what was that?
Surprisingly enough, I interviewed a lady who was quite remarkable, attractive, older black woman, and immaculately dressed, and white gloves and a hat and scarf. Very neat. She looked more like a librarian or a school teacher. And she told me that she met Gary and became a member of his church. And she began having sex with him in the upstairs room at his house or at the church. And she told me that other women were having sex with him. And they would bring their kids. And the games and all were set up to amuse the children while mom is upstairs having sex. Well, she told me that Gary wanted her to do certain sex acts that she would not do. And then she wanted her to team up with another woman for the time she would call, which she wouldn't do. And she said that she stopped the relationship with that.
This wasn't the original one, Mr. Bear, right?
No. This was a nice lady from the neighborhood. The ones who did the crimes with, like I said, ladies of the evening. Because one, they were easy to get in the car. They were easy to get in the car for sex and for money. And like I said, if they turned up missing, no one was going to report them to the police that my girlfriend's a streetwalker and she went out 2 days ago and never came back.
As a homicide investigation, were you guys ever able to determine that he would use the false persona of him having money to attract some of these prostitutes?
Well, there wasn't no false pretense. He had money.
He had money?
He had a lot of money. Not more than I had. But
he didn't work, did he? He didn't have a job.
Well, he was a reverend.
So that was his job.
That was his church, and he had the church because that gave him a write-off from taxes.
Yeah, but when you say church, you're speaking about his home was sort of a makeshift church.
Yeah, if you go into the ghetto, you see storefront churches, and I don't know, people kind of like them. I mean, these reverends are self-appointed reverends. They didn't go to divinity school to get a degree, and they didn't appreciate it. These guys that appointed themselves reverends and bishops and whatever.
Earlier on in the discussion, you mentioned something about you saw the sign on the house into the church. You meaning he had some type of religious sign indicating that was a church where he lived? Sign, actual sign.
It's surprising because it's a white guy with expensive. Somebody would take note of him, but I guess they figured it's a church. He's not doing anything wrong, so they kind of shied away from ever calling the police.
And a reverend having a Rolls Royce and a Cadillac parked out front of his makeshift church.
No, they were parked on the side, but they were visible. And of course, pulling up in a shiny new Cadillac was an attraction for the street walkers. They knew the guy would have money.
He mainly targeted prostitutes
Yeah,
and such?
oh, definitely.
Now, how long do you think Miss Rivera was with him before he began to trust her up until the time she escaped?
Months, I have to
Months.
say. I can't remember.
So he trusted her and thought if he let her out, she
Yeah, he thought he could take her, she'd get her medicine, she'd get back in the car. And, I mean, he had to be delusional, but in that state, pressed his luck and he came out.
Curious, I'm wondering if there were any other occasions where she could have escaped during those months of captivity.
No, it was prison.
So she was helping him at some point, I assume. The other women.
At one point, she even helped
electrocute.
Yeah, well, they using the shot.
Shot later.
Electrocute. They were shot. It was a way to keep them under control, which is interesting. He used muffler balls.
Sure, I do.
It's a huge thing.
Like a U-bolt.
Yeah, and he would put them on the ears.
For handcuffs.
Yeah, down so they would put their ears there. And then he put a chain on them. Yeah, fastened it to the water pipe. So they were standing out. And, that had to be a horrible situation in its own. And they weren't being fed correctly. And when they went to the bathroom, it was right there in the pit. I mean, this was a horrible situation to put anybody through. I mean, it just...
You were actually inside that crime scene, right?
Yeah, I was there afterwards. After, like I said, the stove had been taken and the boxes, the body parts. Like I said, I went in there and I saw the games for the kids. And I saw another thing was interesting going up to the second floor. He had a wall that was covered with dollar bills and change, quarters and nickels and pennies and all, indebted or pasted onto the wall. I said, what kind of church is this?
What was that about, do you think?
I don't know. I never got to ask him. He wouldn't have told me anyway.
I'm sure the stench inside of that dungeon was quite memorable, to say the least.
When you're working homicide, you kind of get used to it, not accustomed, but
acquainted with it.
Acquainted with it, and you can put up with it. And it was funny sometimes. I would go to a scene of a homicide. You had to be uniform. Don't go in there, put the mask on. They thought I was crazy, but I had been around so many bodies and autopsies. You knew the smell of that. It's unmistakable.
I used to say I could eat my lunch inside of an open body cavity of a cadaver, the morgue.
I'll tell you, the first autopsy I went to was police academy, and I saw that out in the parking lot.
You did?
I did.
I got one.
Like I said, I was 19 years old. I've seen dead people with coffins, but never like that. And the guy was in an automobile accident, and he died of a ruptured liver, and his stomach was all puffed up. And when they opened him up, he exploded, and that was all I needed to see. Mm-hmm. But after a couple of years in homicide, I could eat a sandwich while they were doing
Absolutely,
the
yeah.
And some of the pathologists, the doctors, were the greatest people in the world. I had a great deal of respect for them. In fact, two of them that I worked with in Philadelphia, Catherine and Siegel. I had good friendship, good relations with them. And then when I went to Camden, I ended up going to one of the autopsies, and they asked me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "It's not to be operated on."
Completely different function.
And they were good people, knowledgeable.
I learned so much from listening to the pathologists, and of course asking them questions during an autopsy. Like, let's just take the word TPO hemorrhage, for instance. Like, when I was a street cop, I had no idea what that meant. But I soon found out what the TPO hemorrhage meant, and I learned it from a medical examiner, Dr. Robert Siegel. But quite interesting about this character, Heidnik. Do you have any idea how long he was in actual operation?
Well, we placed him for a year. We had a church really, but what he was doing.
Under the radar, we don't know how.
He married someone. She had left him. I'm sure he wanted an easy person to be around.
You don't know if he had any children at all, do you?
Yeah, he had a bunch of children.
Oh, he did?
Oh, he had children from all different women.
From all different
He
women?
had from what I understand, he never, of course, never told me this. I think this came out from his defense attorney in the trial, that he wanted to impregnate black and Hispanic women to produce, I guess, mulatto, half white, half black, half white, half Hispanic, to rule the world. They would be the super race. And there would be no more red. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not.
Well, it's a very interesting fact, if it's a fact.
He had some crazy ways about him. He was a medic in the army. And when he came out, he applied for the University of Pennsylvania to become a licensed practical nurse. He only lasted a short time there. But he had worked at the VA, I understand, at one time as an orderly. He had been discharged from the Army for psychological reasons. I guess the Army was 100%.
Wow.
This guy had a problem.
Very interesting, Ken. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. I'm Detective Sergeant First Class Harry Gavel, retired from the Camden County Prosecutor's Bureau. We'll be doing some more interviews of various infamous and famous detectives that I've met and known over the years, as well as some of my original podcast stories from my own homicide that I investigated. But I have a few of them in mind for Ken here. He's had a very fascinating career and has been involved with some very high-profile, homicide investigations. So stay tuned, stay out of trouble, and this is Detective Sergeant Harry Gavel signing off. See you next time.